Hi there, and welcome to Motivational Moments Live with me, Belinda Boadu, your host. I am absolutely delighted to come to you once again today. It's a little bit of a surprise and impromptu session, but as you know, I rather get these sessions done and have great useful information for you guys rather than sort of keeping you waiting. So without further ado, I'll launch straight into telling you what today's topic is about. We're going to focus on one key area, and that is realigning with purpose. That's realigning yourself with your purpose. And we're going to break that down into 3 different segments, mainly going back to basic, understanding you, and what do you use your time for. So those are the 3 key areas that we're going to talk about with regards to the main topic. Before I go on though, I want to tell you a little bit about Motivational Moments Live. Essentially, we are part of Impart and Impact, which is a education career consultancy and also a business consultancy. And within that, I provide Motivational Moments Live. That is all about providing you guys with the inspiration and motivation you need to literally do exactly what you're supposed to do and get your goals all sorted. So today, as I said, we'll be talking about realigning with purpose. So essentially, what is your purpose? That is the big question, the $1 million question that we all tend to ask ourselves. What is my purpose here on life? What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And often you will find that, the answer doesn't immediately come to you, or it is not something that is static. It's a fluid thing. You might get the answer to generally what your purpose to do, but it doesn't mean that you will just do it and it's done. It's a sort of continuation, an avalanche effect. You start off and it grows and it develops and it builds, and you find yourself sort of developing in that. Purpose is quite different from, okay, what do I do as a career? Sometimes your career and your purpose will align. Other times it might be completely different. Purpose is more to do with what is your calling? What are you created to provide to this world? What is it that you have that is a special gifting, a special ability that you are meant to be dishing out to the rest of us here in the world? And it doesn't have to be something mind-blowing. It doesn't have to be a new invention, but trust me, when you start aligning yourself with your purpose, you find that you're making a big difference, and you find yourself extremely fulfilled in what you are doing, and lots of things start to make sense in your life. So as I said, it's not something that you read a book or you go to school, you go to uni, and then you're like, oh yeah, I found my purpose. It doesn't quite work that way. And you'll find that it doesn't matter what age you are, some people are still searching for their purpose. And sometimes you've got really young people, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, who's essentially already, with the help of his or her parents, identified his or her purpose and is walking in that purpose. So we're now talking about realigning yourself with your purpose, because often you'll find that so much in life gets in the way of your purpose. You become so busy with doing the career thing, you become so busy with doing the family thing, the parenting thing, that purpose becomes something that is the last thing you tend to think about. But we want to find ourselves back in a space where we are realigning ourselves with our purpose, because this time that we are currently in provides us with that opportunity. As horrible as the times may seem, as terrible as things are that are happening in the world, you have to use it almost to your advantage to say, hold on, let me put a break on it and do some soul searching and find out what it is that I'm purposed to do, what I'm purposed to achieve and accomplish in this life. So that is exactly what we're going to sort of dissect in this session today. It is our 5th edition Yes, our 5th edition. So if you're new to listening to Motivational Moments Live, feel free to check out our YouTube page. You will find that under Motivational Moments Live, and you can see some previous episodes or previous seasons on there. So when we want to realign ourselves with our purpose, it's important to go back to basic. And what do I mean by going back to basic? Essentially, it means stripping yourself of all the things that are essentially distractions, all the things that draw us away from identifying with ourselves. Often, say for example, as a mom, my day is completely soaked and wrapped in motherhood, especially since I have a newborn, a new baby. So much of my day is about being mummy. So much of my day is being mummy to 2 amazing kids. So sometimes it takes an effort to step away from that and say to yourself, no, I need to do something that is for me. It's really hard to do that when you have kids. I'm sure those of you on here who are parents can identify with that. But it is important that we do that regardless of what stage we're in, whether you are a university student, whether you are, newlywed, whether you've had babies or your babies are grown, you're an full-grown, matured adult. It is important to steal that time back and say to yourself, I need to align myself with my purpose. When you identify your purpose and you are able to walk in your purpose, you find that you will be a better person for it. You therefore become a better mother, a better parent, a better father. You therefore become a better friend, a better colleague. All the things that you are so busy doing in your life, you become so much better at it because you feel so much more fulfilled. So going back to basic is stripping away all the things that keep your mind occupied. It's stripping away all the things that, being so focused on just your career and forgetting about purpose. You need to go back to basic. When you're so consumed with being a family person and it takes you away from purpose, you need to go back to basic. So it's about being able to say, I just need some time for me. Some me time in a very different way. Not a me time that's about pampering and, catching a nap and doing all those very important and wonderful things, but it's about thinking time, soul searching, realigning with who you really are, asking yourself, what are the things that I enjoy? What are the things I don't enjoy? What are the things that I'm passionate about? What are the things that I find myself doing? And it doesn't matter whether it's rain or shine, whether it's cold, I am desperate to do it. I am desperate to get that done. I will be doing it in my sleep if I can. We have to draw back to those moments and think about what it means to identify these things and then find ways to say, okay, I think I've identified the things that I'm passionate about. I think I've identified, what really defines me. For example, I can imagine that people who are so consumed with, say, aesthetics, how you look, doing all the makeup, buying all the fantastic clothes, when you now find yourself under lockdown situations, you might find yourself quite lost perhaps, because all of a sudden there is almost no point to doing these things. You can't socialize, you can't go out, you can't meet with friends. So you're essentially, stripped from some of these things that you thought were really important to you, but did they align with purpose? Aligning with purpose makes you who you are. It makes you identify more about what you are designed and created to do. And when you start doing it, it doesn't matter whether it's something you derive money from, if it's something you derive some substance from, whether you do or you don't, you feel that you're so much more fulfilled than you've ever been before. I'd love to use myself as an example, really. Going back to basics for me during this period of time has meant that I've been able to identify the things that I'm really passionate about. ultimately it's always to do with helping people realize their potential, helping people get to that next level, that next stage in their life. And when I find myself doing that, I am just so happy. I don't it's not necessarily always consultation, so you're not being paid for it, but when I'm doing it, I feel so fulfilled. And you find that people call on me any time of the day, any time of the night, and I'll get up and I'll be like, right, let's do it. How can I help? How can we sort this out? And whenever I find myself in that space, I can feel like a strength, you know? I feel like my heart is beating stronger, harder, louder. The more that happens, the more I realize, you know, that I'm in my purpose. I'm walking and I've identified that which makes me feel like I am alive, that which makes me feel like I'm doing something, more so than anything that is involved, like working, you know, a 9 to 5, a standard, you know, going into the office. And that isn't purpose. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes you can be doing a job or you can be working, and that work, that job can be in line with your purpose. When you're able to achieve that, you are blessed. You know, making money out of the things that you're passionate about, making money out of what your purpose is fantastic. But it's, as I said, it's not always the case. People, unfortunately, don't always get to have it that way. So it's important, as I said, go back to basics. Find and search within yourself, strip yourself of all the things that distract you. Over the past few days, we've realized that we'll be sitting here sort of chatting in silence, and the TV hasn't been on all day. Literally, our TV hasn't been on for the past 3-4 days, and we didn't even notice, you know, and this is a household with kids. We didn't even notice. Everyone's been so occupied with doing things, you know, thinking, even if it's not an active thing, just time to think, time to plan. That is so critical during this period of time. I've had so much time to plan, more so than I've been able to do in any other point in my life, because no longer are you sort of rushing to go here, rushing to do this, rushing to achieve that. So you have to steal that time for yourself in order to go back to basic and realign yourself with your purpose. So strip it all bare, you know. It doesn't mean that you have to withdraw from people, from family members. You still get to carry on with your day-to-day activities, but just like I'm doing right now, I've had to steal myself away from the kids, you know, and come and sit here right now to have this conversation with you guys, because this is important to me. You know, this is what makes me feel fulfilled, so it's important for me to be able to do so. And every now and then you might find there's a distraction. My little girl might come running down, wants my attention, but we soldier on, because I am walking and doing something that I know is in line with my purpose. So yeah, exactly. You don't have to really completely stop everything else you're doing. It doesn't mean you don't get to go to work. It doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in a room. It doesn't mean any of those things, but it just means finding moments in time that you're just identifying with yourself, you know, soul searching, asking yourself questions. And what are the sorts of questions you're asking? You're asking, so who am I? You know, what am I made of? What are the things that make me tick? What are the things that make me happy? What are the things that upset me? What are the things that keep me going? If I could only have 3 things, you know, that made me sort of content in my life, what would those 3 things be? If I had to do something that made me feel accomplished, that made me feel fulfilled, what would those things be? It's sort of really sitting down and with a pen and paper and writing it down. You know, ensuring that you're taking note of these things, because by all means, distractions will come. You will have to end up going back to work. You will end up having to go back to the normality and stresses of life. And you don't want this to be one of those things that was a fleeting moment thing, and then off you go, forgetting all about it once again. So write it down. There is real power in when you have a thought and you write it down and you go back to it and you meditate on it and you start pondering on how you can turn this written down statement into something that comes alive. I've spoken about that particular thing numerous occasions when I was discussing, putting together the Atana Women Conference. It started from literally just a thought, and every day pondering about it. Okay, how do I make this thought come alive? Okay, how does this look like? How does this element look like? How do I do this part? How do I bring people on board? Which people do I need in my team to make this happen? And just daily, you saw this thing growing bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually I gave birth to it, almost literally. And then you can see it as a living, breathing, happening thing. And it's been amazing ever since. So don't be afraid of your thoughts. Don't be afraid and think that they're too big. If they're not too big, you should be worried. If it's something that you can happily tweedle do, then you should quite frankly be worried. Your dreams and your aspirations should instill a bit of fear in you. They should kind of make you a bit jittery, like, oh, wow, that's huge. And then start thinking daily, okay, it's huge, but how do I get there? It's almost like saying, I want to walk to this far destination, and then thinking that's impossible. But every day you take a step towards the destination. Every day you take a step. It might take years, it might take months, it might take weeks, but you will get there eventually. You will get there eventually. It's, as they say, small drops eventually creates a mighty ocean. So don't be afraid to dream big, to have these huge aspirations. If your purpose feels huge, the better. It means, of course, you were created for a purpose, and you can get there. You mustn't be afraid of it. Don't sort of be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand and feel like it's way too big. I can't comprehend it. I can't make sense of it. So I don't even want to go there. I don't want to do it. So that's going back to basics. Asking yourself the relevant questions, hard questions, questions that are going to make you think, questions that are going to even make you upset with yourself, when you really come down to the nitty-gritty, this is who you are. And then there are some things that you might have to change, some things that you have to work with and remold and rebuild. But that is the core of who you're dealing with. So it takes us to the next segment, or the next section of aligning with your purpose, realigning with your purpose, which is understanding you. To be able to realign with your purpose, to be able to identify your purpose, to be able to walk in your purpose, you essentially need to understand you. There is no point trying to fulfill purpose if you're just trying to copy someone else. If you're just trying to do what your neighbor is doing. If you're just trying to do what the person, your role model is doing. I'm not saying you shouldn't have role models. I'm not saying you shouldn't have people you look up to. Absolutely do. It's important. But one of the statements I can't stand the most, right? And forgive me if you do dig it, but when people say, I want to be just like you, it's like, no, you don't want to be just like me because I'm already me. You want to be just like you. You want to be just like you. And being just like you is just as great as being just like me. But I have to be just like me and you have to be just like you. When people sort of fixate on people, oh, you have an amazing voice, you have and I want to be just like you. It's fine. You maybe want to sound like me, or you want to dress in, you want to have similar dress sense to someone, but you don't want to be just like someone else. That's not where your purpose lies. When you're so busy trying to become someone else, who is being you? You are missing out on your purpose. You are missing out on fulfilling your destiny because you were so busy trying to fill someone else's shoes rather than just filling your own and working on understanding your own shoes and filling them and walking well within those shoes. So don't be fixated on understanding how someone else works and how someone else sounds and what someone else is doing. Be fixated on how you can be a better version of yourself day in and day out. That's what you should be concerned about. That's what you should be fixated on, really. Right? So if you don't understand who you are, if you don't have a clue, you know, beyond who, when someone says, tell me a little bit about yourself, you know, we have a tendency to say, well, my name is Belinda Boadu. I'm X amount of years old. Let's not go there. I graduated in a degree in psychology. But is that who you are? Is that who you are? These are different elements of your life, but who are you? And often we miss that. Often we don't think about that at all. The first thing we are inclined to say when someone asks me, tell me a bit about yourself or tell me who you are, is we say, well, I'm a doctor, or I'm a psychologist, or I work in sales, or that's not who you are. That's what you do, but it's not who you are. So it is so important that you understand who you are. Because without understanding who you are, without understanding what makes you tick, without understanding what you are about, you cannot work in your purpose. You cannot accomplish that thing which you were designed to accomplish, because you are too busy trying to be a good salesperson, or you are too busy trying to be mum. You are too busy trying to be a good daughter or a good son, but you're not actually being who you are. So who are you? If I ask you that question right now, tell me, who are you? Can you answer it honestly, genuinely, without giving me your job description, without telling me how many kids you are and who you're married to? Because is that who you are? Is that what makes up your identity? Well, is that what makes up your DNA? What you do for a living and how many members are in your family? I can assure you it doesn't. But we need to all learn how to answer that question, because in answering that question lies the answer to your purpose. And the more you ask yourself the question, it's not an easy question to answer. Don't get me wrong. It's really not an easy question to answer. It takes a while to understand who you are and to build the confidence necessary to be able to confidently say, this is who I am. You understand? So it takes time. But the more you ask yourself that question in your private closet and you attempt in answering that question, the better you will be at identifying who you are. Because the first time you ask yourself that question, who am I? You will definitely write down, I am a mother, I am a father, I am a son, I have 3 kids, I have this, I live in here, and I'm British, I'm Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian, whatever. You make that list. That's the first list you come up with. And then you have to do it again. And you'll find that most of those things will drop off. You know, and then when you start writing things like, I am a fighter, you know, I am a helper, you know, then you're getting somewhere. But even in writing those things down or identifying those things with yourself is not enough. What does it mean to be a fighter? When you said I am a fighter, what does it mean? Then you start saying, well, I believe in fighting for other people's rights or something of that nature. Right? Or your answer may be like, I am someone who constantly bounces back. What does that mean? Bounces back from what? Then you might be able to say that, yes, I'm resilient. It doesn't matter how many knocks I get back up again, and I keep running towards my destination. When you are able to start answering the who am I question in that fashion, you are certainly getting somewhere. So get into the habit of asking yourself that question every day and making notes on that every day, because there is no, you know, what is the point of going through 70, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years plus of life and you never really knew, or you could never really identify who you were? Great examples are people who are married for 60 years, they lose their spouse and they can't carry on living. And of course, I'm not stripping away from the fact that it would mean that they've lost their life partner, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you identify yourself so much in someone else that on your own, you have no clue who you are. And unfortunately, it happens to a lot of women. It happens to a lot of women. I mean, that's not the direction we're quite going in today, but sometimes, you get married, you become a mother, and then all of a sudden you have no clue who you are anymore. You only identify with being a wife and being a mother. So when the kids fly the nest and they're doing their own thing, you are lost. When your husband, when your spouse decides that they're not doing this marriage anymore, then you are totally lost. So I think in our journey, the primary thing is to always be able to identify who we are, because the circumstances around you are going to change, your predicaments are going to change, how you look, how you feel, all of those things are going to change, but fundamentally who you are will remain the same. You'll mature in it, you'll grow in it, you'll develop in it, but who you are, the essence of you, will always remain the same. So get into the habit of asking yourself the question, who am I? Who am I? Right? So far, we've spoken about going back to basics, stripping yourself from all the things that distract you and doesn't allow you some time to soul search and think. And then we've also spoken about understanding you, knowing who you are, asking yourself the question constantly until you're able to refine your answer and say, yes, this rings true for me, And I'm sure the people we admire the most, if you find that there's someone you really love, regardless of what they do, what their niche is, there are people who are very confident in that thing. So they have spent time with themselves, they've what's the word I'm looking for? They've refined their craft. So in refining their craft, they would have had to have an understanding of who they are, what they enjoy, how they can do it better, how they can do it more. So then you get to the point where you admire that person. And you might even get to that point where you say, I wish I was like that person, or I want to be just like that person, which, as you know, is a no-no for me. You need to be just like you. So yeah, ask yourself the question daily and refine it daily. Who am I? I haven't fully answered that question yet. You might never be able to fully answer that question. It's a continuous process, but the more you ask it, the better you will become at identifying exactly who you are and then coming closer to purpose and being able to realign with that purpose. So then you also need to look at, what do you use your time for? What do you spend your time mostly doing? As I've said, is it you going to work 9 to 5, meaning that you probably wake up at 7 or 6, get ready, you're on the train, on the bus, in the car, whatever. You're in the office, 9, you're clocking out at 5, then another 2-hour journey, 1-hour journey, whatever, to come back home, eat your dinner quickly, sit in front of the TV, relax a bit, and off to bed you go and repeat. And then we only have the weekend to do some living, and that living more or less is made up of preparing for the week ahead. So what do you use your time for? What is the stuff that occupies your time the most? And fair enough, absolutely. If you're working, if you're schooling, those things are going to take up your time. They're going to take up your physical time. But mentally, emotionally, spiritually, where are you spending your time? What gets your mind space? What gets your heart? What gets your thinking? Is it work all the time? Is it family all the time? Is it education all the time? Or is it you? Is it you soul searching? Is it you going to God and saying, God, I need to know what you put me on this earth for? I need you to tell me. I need you to show me more and more each day. I want to understand. I want to be able to live a life poured out. I do not want to go back or come back to you full. I want to come back to you empty. I want to come out of this life I'm living knowing that everything I was supposed to accomplish, I have been able to accomplish. What do you use your time for? You have to trust that if you use your time, or if you spend your time, your space in your mind, your thinking, in trying to align with your purpose, that everything else will fall in place. Everything else will fall in place. When you are walking in purpose, everything will bend almost like a reed to help you, to push you along, because that's what you were here for in the first place. But we find ourselves struggling because we're going against the grain. We are sort of going against the stream. The stream is pushing in and we're pushing against it because we don't understand what we are meant to be doing. We don't get our purpose. We've not identified it yet. So some of you are trying your hand at this, trying your hand at that, and it's not working. You might even be spending a ton of money trying to gain this education, school a little bit here and do a bit of this, because you just can't figure out what makes you tick. And sometimes doing those various things are all working together for your good, are all gonna come together in the end, but a lot of the time, much of it is a waste of time. The quicker or the earlier we are able to even teach our children that it's not about success in a career, it's about success in identifying and living your purpose, the much better quality of life they will have, the more satisfied they will be, the more fulfilled they will be. Because we are not teaching our children the correct ways. Everything is about learn hard, study hard, become a doctor, but people are becoming all sorts of so-called successful things, and are beyond unhappy because they're still not living in that purpose. They're still not flowing in that purpose. So how do you identify your purpose? What is it you're spending your time doing the majority of the time? How are you occupying your time? Is it about being successful in your career, or is it about being successful with your life? These are the things that we really need to think about. And I do need to balance it out. I want to sort of use myself as an example. I've done lots of different types of things. My journey, I've worked in high level corporate, in City of London, banking district, I've been there, done that. I've had a life in recruitment, HR, been there, done that. I've done all manner of pieces of education, degree, additional professional studies, and so on and so forth. But I've always found that if I'm not helping, if I'm not sort of drawing out purpose, if I'm not sort of helping people to cross the bridge, I don't feel like I'm fulfilled. You can throw all the money in the world at me, I don't really feel fulfilled. I begin to feel more fulfilled if I'm really helping someone sort of go from this side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge. So I started to learn that therein lies my purpose. I set up Atana Mums, Atana Women. That's all to do with helping mothers, helping women on that motherhood and womanhood journey. And when I can do Atana Mums, Atana Women in my sleep. The Atana Mums will tell you that even whilst I was deep in labor, which they didn't know anything about, I was still working, I was still helping people, I was still sort of trying to find solutions to people's troubles. And it doesn't bother me. I'm not even thinking about it. That shows me that therein lies my purpose. So the more I begin to work within that space, the more I do in that space, the more fulfilled I begin to feel. And I'm finding, just as I said, that when you start walking in your purpose, everything just begins to come together and work out for your good. So no longer am I essentially struggling to figure out what's the next big idea, the next big $1 million deal, whatnot. None of those things concern me. I'm not bothered, but yet I carry on living. I carry on, sort of living my life. I have no major needs. I'm not on the streets, nothing, but I'm walking in my purpose. So it's important. Purpose is important. It's not easy. It's not here's the solution, do this, just do this, read this book, write this exam, and there you have your purpose, walk in it. It doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite work like that. It's a real continuous effort, as continuous as breathing is, as continuous as, opening your eyes, waking up to face a new day. That's how continuous the process of identifying your purpose is. But if you really want to identify it, if you really want to walk in your purpose, these 3 things, going back to basics, understanding who you are, and spending your time wisely, are the things or the tools that are going to help you achieve this. They are the things that are going to help you accomplish and get to understand and get to know your purpose. It's so sweet. Life becomes so sweet when you are walking in purpose. I cannot tell you, with bigger bells and whistles. You really want to be able to identify your purpose, and most of the time you'll find that your purpose is connected with people. No one's purpose is that they are able to fix their hair and look beautiful. That's not purpose. Purpose is always going to connect with other people. Purpose is not only going to draw something out of you, but it's going to be a helping hand to not just one person, but society, generations at large. When you're able to connect with your purpose, it might not be that you're doing something major, but that's one small thing you're doing is going to be that difference, is going to be that game changer, is going to be that thing that sets you apart. So be determined to identify your purpose. Be determined to understand it, to walk in it. It's very, very important that you do. Other people's destiny are connected to your purpose. When you're able to unlock your purpose and walk in it, you will ultimately help other people unlock theirs. It doesn't matter what your purpose is, honestly, but it's always connected to other people. It's always going to be connected. It's something that is a gift to everyone else. And in it being a gift to everyone else, you will find that you are so much more fulfilled in it. So if you're very good in a particular thing, say for example, you're very creative, you're good with your hands and you can make things, your purpose can lie in that. But your purpose really isn't you making this stuff. Your purpose lies in the creativity element of that, if that makes sense. So the more you're able to be creative and find creative solutions to other people's needs, I will tell you what. So say for example, in our Tana Mums, we recently have been doing a lot of expert sessions. So we've been having wonderful people come and give us these expertise Zoom sessions where they're teaching us about, from gardening to facial treatments to child development and training to makeup. So I want to just maybe highlight, say, the makeup. To this young lady, she might not necessarily recognize that what she's doing is a gifting, but in being able to pass on something that makes other people feel good about themselves, tell me, that is helping others. That is contributing to how people feel about themselves. So if you've been able to go from being unhappy with your image, for example, and then learning the tools or learning what it takes to enhance your looks, you are now happier, and that happiness was passed on to you through that individual who taught you. For example, we had a gardening lady who taught us how to garden, grow your own food. Now Lots of our ladies are now growing their own foods, and the satisfaction they're getting from watching their plants grow and eventually being able to eat the fruits of their labor, that's major. So therein lies purpose. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be a reinvention of the wheel, but it has to be you identifying it, you doing it, and doing it with excellence. Doing it with absolute excellence. There is so much to talk about when it comes to purpose, if I can be very honest with you, but I just want to leave you with this sort of starter kit, shall I say. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to speak on it some more and delve into it a little bit deeper. But if you're interested, which all of us ultimately should be, if you're interested in identifying and realigning yourself with your purpose, then these are the things that you need to start with as a basic format. You need to go back to basics, strip it all down. You need to know and understand who you are, and you need to know and understand what you're spending your time on, what is occupying your space, your thinking. Those are the key things. So yeah, that really gives it the in a nutshell, the starter pack for realigning with your purpose. I'm not sure if you have any questions. As usual, if you do, feel free to write it down and I will see if I can answer that for you. If not, and if you come up with your questions later, feel free to contact me, write it in the comment section, and I will surely get back to you. And of course, I can't go off without saying, follow Impart and Impact if you're not already doing so. Motivational Moments Live is now available on YouTube, so look for Motivational Moments Live, or you can perhaps search it under my name, Belinda Boadu. I'm not sure, I might have to check that, but please subscribe. It will be really, really wonderful for me to see you guys subscribing. I'm working on a few things to get us all more connected and more involved, so watch this space. If you're liking all the gear, if you're liking all the wares, you want to definitely be checking out Bella's Blessing. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. And if you're a woman, if you're a mother, if you're a sister, if you're a woman, you definitely want to make sure you're following Atana Women. There are some fantastic resources being shared. There are great things happening in the Atana Mums Camp. So get connected on Instagram, on Facebook to Atana Women. So yes, I'm so grateful you have taken the time to spend with me this evening. It's a little bit different, a later hour. I hope that's okay with you. But share this video with others who you think it might benefit. And I'm delighted you spent your evening with me today. Have a fantastic evening. And don't forget, people, Black Lives Matter. We all matter, Have a fantastic evening. Ciao.